In the 1980s, the William Somora company introduced the first bread-making machine to the US market, priced at $275. Now, at first they had great hopes for the product's success, but the initial sales were disappointing. Now they thought, well, maybe we got it wrong, maybe demand isn't there. After all, people who want to bake bread can already just bake it in an oven, and people who aren't interested in going to the hassle of doing that can just go down to the grocery store and buy a loaf. But it turns out that the problem wasn't lack of demand, it was that the consumer had no way of knowing whether $275 was a reasonable price. You see, with no other bread making machine on the market, there was no comparison. Was $275 a rip-off or the bargain of the century? So instead of ramping up the marketing budget and trying to increase advertising and get over to people just what they were getting for that money, they did a very unusual thing. They introduced a larger, slightly snazzier version, almost 50% dearer, at $419. The result? The sales of the cheaper version almost doubled, because now people had a comparison. They could look at the $275 version and go, wow, for $275 you get almost as much as you get for the $419. That's a bargain. You see, the human brain has no innate mechanism for deciding whether something represents value for money or not. In effect, what we need is some kind of comparison. If I told you I was going to buy a house for $450,000 in a suburb of city X and asked you whether it was good value for money, unless you were intimately acquainted with the real estate prices of that city, you simply wouldn't be able to answer. You need to know what the going rate was in that city. Now, rookie salespeople, when they're being taught how to close, are always taught to use the alternative close. So she might say, would you like to buy two, or will one be enough? And of course, most customers will say, oh no, one will be fine, thank you. But that's great, because you've got the sale. When people are given a choice, they will often choose the cheapest option in the belief that they're getting the best value for money. But if we introduce a third, more expensive option, often the compromise choice shifts from the economy product to the middle priced one. Take this rather startling experiment at the Sloan MIT School of Management, where 100 students were given the option of buying an online subscription only to the Economist magazine for $59, or an online and print for $125. 84% of the students opted for the cheaper version, the $59 one. Then a third option was added, a print-only option for $125. Now, look, obviously no one was seriously expected to take this option. Who in their right mind would buy a print-only option for $125 when you could get print and online for exactly the same price? So logic says that it should have had no effect whatsoever on the students' choices. The choice effectively was still between A and B. But an amazing thing happened. Instead of 16% of students choosing the online and print version, that figure soared to 68%. That's an increase of over 400% just by introducing an option that wasn't really meant to be taken seriously by anybody, and that nobody in their right mind would pick. The increase in dollars to the Economist in this experiment would have been a 49% increase. So the next time you're giving a presentation and you're asking for approval to spend $20, $30, $50,000, whatever it is, don't just give two options. If you give a cheaper option, you're giving them an alternative close, and you're making it an either-or choice. The decision makers in the audience might just go for the cheaper option in the belief that that represents better value for money. See if you can introduce a third, more expensive option that makes the middle option seem great value for money. And you'll see the chances of the decision makers approving your proposal soar exponentially. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out my 3.5-hour online course, How to Open with Impact, which you can get for free for a limited period by following the link that's on the screen now. It's 32 bite-sized videos, so you can watch it whenever and wherever you like. You can binge watch the whole thing or consume it 5 minutes at a time, depending on your schedule. And as I said, for a limited period of time, it's free.